Hello everyone, David and Maddie here for another awesome part 2 video. And in this one, we're gonna teach you 15 more brand new and very useful phrases that we used in Conversation 23, a favorite movie. Now, Maddie will tell you why you should stick around to the end of this video and the reason you should try to remember all of these 15 phrases we're talking about today.
Conversation 23 is actually one of my most favorite conversations we've ever had, where we use so many different expressions that are commonly used in everyday English by native speakers. If you haven't watched that conversation, go ahead and click on the link above. But if you already have, now's the time to enjoy this video and don't forget to take notes because I promise you every expression we'll talk about can come in handy and broaden your vocabulary if you pay close attention to them. Now, before getting into today's main content, please also show us some support so we can continue making more videos like this by hitting the thumbs up button and subscribing to our channel so you can continue keeping up with the latest content. Alrighty, let's get started with this amazing lesson.
Number 1. To toot one's own horn.
Ooh, yes, I certainly do. Not to toot my own horn here, but I am great at recommending movies.
Now for this phrase's pronunciation, maybe the word toot is still new to you, that's why you need to make sure that you pronounce it correctly. So the word toot has its vowel as the oo sound, so toot, toot, right? And it ends with a consonant T sound, so toot or toot. You can either enunciate the T sound or you can also stop it. Now let's move on to the next one. Own, own. This one is very easy because it has the N sound at the end and also its vowel is the O, so own. You own, right? Or your own. And then the last word is horn, horn. Every other word in this phrase can be easy, but this word, in order to pronounce it correctly, you need to enunciate the R sound, so horn. Please don't say hon. Hon is not correct. So horn, horn. And once again, this word is also ended with an N sound. So horn, horn. Now let's say this whole thing with me a few more times. To toot one's own horn. To toot one's own horn. To toot one's own horn.
When you first hear this phrase, you may think of it in a literal sense, especially on the road. People on the street are tooting or honking their car horn or bike horn. But this phrase has quite another interesting meaning. If someone toots their own horn, then that means they are bragging about themselves, talking about their accomplishments, talents, or achievements in a very prideful manner. Or another word you can also use is to boast about something. Think about how this phrase was used in the conversation when Maddie said, not to toot my own horn, but I am great at recommending movies. This phrase is being used in a bit of a playful manner, saying, not to toot my own horn, to indicate that you're about to brag about yourself, but don't want to come off as annoying or too prideful. And that is precisely how Maddie used it. Now that this phrase or expression makes sense, let's give you some examples. The first one, she really likes to toot her own horn when it comes to any topics related to her work. That means she's interested in talking about how good she is at work or maybe how important her role is in making the company more successful. Or in other words, she likes to brag or boast about her work-related topics.
And the second example, when my grandma was still around, she'd say she didn't like to toot her own horn about how great of a baker she was. but then drag on the conversation about all of her best baking accomplishments. This is quite typical of elderly people, and I'm pretty sure we all experience this when our grandpa or grandma is reminiscing about their past memories, especially ones that make them feel happy in the moment of talking. They start out saying, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I did this and I accomplished that when I was young. And then the next thing you know, the horn tooting section begins. This is annoying but adorable at the same time because they're really happy if you make a good listener in these moments.
Number 2, heartthrob.
She said she likes anything from romantic comedies, classics, and heartthrob.
For this word, make sure that the R sound is clearly enunciated. Har. The next thing that we're going to do is stop the T sound in heart. In one of the previous part 2 videos, we talked about how to stop the T sound, making it really quick. Heart. If you slow it down a little bit and you push a bit more, then you're making the stop D sound. Hard. Hear the difference? Heart. And after stopping the T sound, you're gonna go directly into the TH. Heartthrob. And for the last pronunciation point, you can either enunciate or stop the B sound at the end of this word. Heartthrob, or heartthrob. Just be careful and don't change it to the P sound. Don't say heartthrob, not correct. Heartthrob.
Heartthrob can be used in 2 different situations. The typical way it is used is to talk about a very handsome man or actor in a movie. If someone says, "Oh, he is such a heartthrob," then they are just saying that he is seriously attractive, and many others probably think that as well. Another way it can be used is to talk about a romance movie. Typically a teen romance movie or a romance movie that will make someone sad and cry. That's why sometimes you can hear people call this kind of movie a tearjerker or even a weeper. Some examples are Twilight. Remember when this movie came out and teens were swooning over the male characters? Another heartthrob movie is The Fault in Our Stars. This one is a sad one that can make you cry. And when Maddie used this word in the conversation, she was using it to talk about a tragic romance movie called Me Before You. This movie definitely falls into this category. Now let's come up with some examples for you to have something to practice along with. And the first one is, don't just decide to marry someone just because they are heartthrob. Otherwise, the relationship won't last. Perhaps you've heard the saying, don't judge a book by its cover. And this is very true when it comes to finding your significant other and marrying him. Of course, a handsome guy can also make a good partner, but it might take time for you to determine that. Also, you should think of something else much better than his look as a metric to find out if he's really the one of your life. That something can be, is he a good and caring person? Is he a good cook? You got the idea.
And the second example can also give you another idea about the unexpected side of someone handsome. He might be the office heartthrob, but don't let his looks fool you. He is extremely brutal with his words and attitude if he thinks you're slacking off. This is a common shock for anyone who's easily attracted to someone else's appearance and then later figures out that the person is rude, and once again, you need to come up with a better metric rather than their looks to measure them better so you won't be shocked or disappointed.
Number 3, plot and storyline.
It is super funny.
What's the plot of that movie? For the first word, the pronunciation for it is very simple. Plot. Plot starts with a P sound, so make sure you push enough air out of your mouth to enunciate it. So, plot. Plot. And once again, the T sound at the end of this word can either be enunciated or stopped depending on how you say it. And the last one is storyline. Storyline. The first part of this word, story, can be very easy because everybody can pronounce this word, right? That's why the main focus here is upon the second syllable, line, because it has an ending N sound again. And once again, it's a nasal sound, so it's supposed to be very strong and distinct. It can also be a little tricky if your mother tongue doesn't have the N sound or any N sound at the end of words. So it'll take you a little bit of time to get into the habit of enunciating the N sound all the time, especially when it's located at the end of words like this. Now let's say these words with me a few more times. The first one, plot, plot, or plot. And the second one, storyline, storyline, storyline.
The word plot is both a verb and a noun and has two meanings. The first meaning is when people secretly make a plan that is typically bad or illegal. The second way is when the writer of a movie, play, or TV show creates the sequence of events that will unfold or happen later. With this meaning, its synonym is also storyline, so you can use them interchangeably. In the conversation, when David asked, "What is the plot of the movie?" he was asking Maddie about the main events that happened to see if it was worth watching. Now, with the simplicity of these two words, let's give you some examples so you understand how to use them better. With the first one, when writing a play or even a book, it is essential to have an outline of the story plot so you can create a coherent and exciting piece. Drawing out a plot outline helps you not only stay on track with what you're writing about, but know exactly when and how to attract people's attention to the exciting twists and turns. That's why it's essential to have an outline of the story plot as your work's backbone to make sure it's exhilarating.
Wow, such a good example. Now let's move up to the second one. They were plotting to rob the bank, but the police busted them before anything bad could happen. Like Maddie said before, plot can also mean to plan on doing something illegal or to conspire on something. In this example, the legal thing is robbing the bank. However, these people got caught before they were even able to do anything with their plan.
Number 4, be deported. Well, this high-powered book editor is going to be deported to her home country. For the pronunciation of the word deported, we're going to concentrate on the middle of the word. There's that pour. Don't say pa. Don't say departed, not correct, and that sounds very odd. Make sure it's really clearly the or sound. To do that, make your mouth a bit smaller. Deported, or. See how small my mouth is? Deported. And for the last part of this word, the did, just don't over enunciate it and don't say deported, not correct, deported. The first d sound is a little bit more subtle. Deported. Now say this whole thing with me a few more times. Be deported. Be deported. Be deported.
When someone is deported, they are a foreigner in a country and forced to leave it for two reasons. Reason number one, they have no legal right to be there. Maybe they don't have any permit or visa to stay in the country anymore, or if they have, it expired already. And reason 2, they have committed a crime or are involved in something illegal. Typically, deportation is not always the solution, depending on the case, because they can go behind bars if their crime is critical. But when they're deported, they will be sent back to their home country and maybe not allowed to return ever again. In the conversation, deported was used to talk about or describe the situation that happened in a movie. Marty said the high-powered book editor is going to be deported back to her home country. That means she's going to be sent back there because her permit or visa to stay in the States is no longer valid. In this case, she can possibly be back when her document is successfully renewed or validated. That's everything you should keep in mind for the usages. Now let's move up to some examples. And the first one is, when living abroad, you should be careful not to do anything that will get you deported. It will be a total disaster if you travel to a foreign country and get deported just because you did something that is prohibited in that country. So to avoid it, before traveling, do your research and keep yourself updated on what you shouldn't do when in that country to steer clear of trouble.
Going on to the second example, in the US, if someone has to be deported, they must wait a minimum of 5 years before they can apply for re-entry. This might be some minor but unacceptable act that the deported person engaged in. But even so, they had to wait a minimum of 5 years to be able to reapply to enter the States. So like David said in the previous example, do your research on what you should never do in the US so you won't be in this situation if you want to live or travel there.
Number 5, to play along with somebody.
Her secretary only agrees to play along because he was promised a promotion.
Now for the pronunciation. The first thing you need to be aware of is the word play. Play starts with a consonant P sound, and once again, with the P sound, just make sure that the amount of air you're pushing out of your mouth is enough for it to be clearly enunciated. So play, play. And also the word along, along. A lot of people would mistake this word for alone, so please don't say to play alone with somebody. It has to be to play along with somebody. Now say this phrase with me a few more times. To play along with somebody. To play along with somebody.
This phrasal verb is very interesting. If you play along with someone, then it means that you agree or pretend to agree to do what they want and cooperate with them. When this phrase was used to describe the plot of a movie, it was said, her secretary only agrees to play along because he was promised a promotion to work his dream job as a book editor. Meaning the secretary only agreed to cooperate with his boss because he was promised a promotion. He only agreed to play along to get the job he wanted. The majority of the time though, you will hear this phrase when people talk about situations with children and their imagination. For example, I just played along with my daughter when she said there was a unicorn in her room. Here the parent is just pretending to agree to keep the kid happy and not crush her imagination. Now that you understand this phrase clearly, let's give you some examples so you understand how to use it in different situations. The first example, I refused to play along when my sister was plotting to pull a prank on the neighbor. Here, my sister had an idea of pranking or teasing the neighbor while I thought it shouldn't be done because it wasn't the right thing to do. It might cause some bad impression or conflict with the neighbor, so I refused to play along or carry out the plan with her.
Once again, it's a very good example. Now let's move up to the second one. I regret my decision to play along with my friend's plan to catch a beehive so we could eat the honey. Maybe when you heard this sentence, you could already imagine the kind of bad consequence I had when I decided to play along with my friend in trying to catch the beehive for its honey. I regret it because the catch was a total disaster when the bees just got out and stung us badly. Now I'm crying in pain and saying, I shouldn't have played along in the first place. Here, a big lesson learned.
Number 6. Eccentric. He also made her fly to Alaska to visit his eccentric family. For this word, it spells with 2 letter C's, but they're both pronounced quite differently. The first one is the k sound, and the second C is pronounced with the s sound. Hear that? The k and the s sound. Eccentric. Eccentric. The next pronunciation point I would like to concentrate on is the k sound at the end of the word. Eccentric. Make sure that is correct and clear. To make that sound, push your lips up and out. Trick, trick. Now say this whole word with me a few more times. Eccentric, eccentric, eccentric.
The word eccentric is both an adjective and a noun. If something or somebody is eccentric, that means people find that person or thing strange and unusual. In the conversation, it was used to describe the secretary's family, saying his eccentric family, simply meaning that his family is quite bizarre, or people will find his family unusual. Adding this word to your word bank will help you sound more interesting when talking because always using strange or unusual to describe things can be bland and redundant. So spice it up like how we will with the examples. And the first one is, geocaching is an eccentric hobby, but it becomes increasingly popular. Geocaching is an activity in which people just go out to look for hidden objects that are geographically located with the coordinates given to them so they can use GPS to find them. For many people, this recreational activity can be very weird, but because people can have a lot of fun and physical exercise when doing it, now it becomes more popular.
Now going on to the second example, with his eccentric personality, it was hard for him to make friends when he was a child. This is pretty true as other kids don't want to be with or around anyone whose personality is eccentric or odd. They always say he's an oddball or he's a crank or he's eccentric, so don't be friends with him. That's why it's difficult to make friends when you have an eccentric personality.
Number 7, quadriplegic and quadriplegia. I think I've seen that one before. Is it the movie where the hired caregiver decides to make the person who is quadriplegic enjoy his life again? Each of these words has 4 syllables, so they can be a little difficult to pronounce. Quadra. So the first point that we're talking about here is upon the second syllable. Dra. Quadra. Please don't say quadra, because that's the voiceless consonant TR sound. But in this case, it's a voiced consonant DR sound, so dra, quadra. And then plegic as the last 2 syllables of the first one. Plegic. Ple has its vowel as the long E sound, so ple, don't say play. Ple. And then the last one, jig. And this one has the voiced CH sound for its consonant, jig. Please don't say chick. Don't say quadriplegic, but it has to be quadriplegic. Quadriplegic. And if you know how to pronounce the first word correctly, then it's very easy for the second word as well. So quadriplegia. You just have to take out the last syllable of the first word and then embed in the j sound for the second word. So quadriplegia. Now say these words with me a few more times. Quadriplegic. Quadriplegia. One more time. Quadriplegia.
Now the word quadriplegic is both a noun and an adjective used for someone who has quadriplegia, meaning they cannot use their arms and legs. They can lose total or partial control and sensation in the limbs, probably due to an accident, an illness, or they could even be born with a defect. People with quadriplegia are usually wheelchair bound and require assistance to perform daily tasks. That's why in the movie Me Before You, a man who has quadriplegia hired a caregiver. He needed help to do everyday tasks. Something you should be careful of when using this is try to avoid saying he is quadriplegic or he is a quadriplegic because it can sound insensitive and a bit rude. But saying he has quadriplegia can be more acceptable and less offensive. Now that you understand these words very well, let's give you some extra examples to deepen your understanding. The first one, even though he has quadriplegia, he isn't letting it stop him from living his best life ever. Oftentimes, when people think of others with quadriplegia, people tend to think that their lives would be difficult, lonely, and dull. But the reality is that many of them out there are excelling at what they're doing with an acute sense of living and trying to be better every day because they don't let the illness stop them from living up to the fullest of their lives.
Wow, I gotta say that is such an amazing example because it gives people hope and also inspiration in life. Now let's go on to the second one. Physical therapy can help manage a quadriplegic patient's pain and is essential for the healing process. Physical therapy is a treatment to help strengthen the muscles and get the blood flowing. It aims to relieve pain and ultimately improve movement and recovery from an injury. That's why it's often intended to help quadriplegic patients reduce their pain and heal their limbs.
Number 8, throw in a curveball or throw a curveball.
And then threw in the curveball right at the perfect moment.
For the pronunciation, we're going to look at the first word, throw. Throw. Make sure that you're doing that voiceless TH sound correctly. Only air, don't make it throw. Not correct, that's the voice. So, throw. The second pronunciation point is in the word curveball. We're gonna look at that V sound in curve. Don't over enunciate it and say curve. Make it a subtle V sound, but be careful to not change it to the sound. So if you do the sound, it's a voiceless sound and you won't have any vibrations here. So when you're doing the V sound, you should feel the vibrations. Curve. It's just a slight vibration, all right? So again, don't over enunciate the sound. Just a little vibration. Curve. And the last pronunciation point is in the ending sound, ball. Just make sure that sound is clear and correct. Don't change it to any other sound. Don't say curve bow, not correct. Curve ball, ball. Now say these phrases with me a few more times. To throw in a curveball, to throw in a curveball, and to throw a curveball, to throw a curveball.
If we isolate the word curveball in this phrase, then it will be easier to understand its meaning. The word itself has two drastically different meanings. The first one is used in sports, typically in baseball. When the pitcher throws a curveball to the batter, that means that the ball isn't going in a straight line. But don't get hung up on this definition if you aren't into sports. The second one is worth noting because it can help you spice up how you speak or describe a situation. You can use curveball to talk about a situation that was unexpected and even difficult to deal with. If I say, when life gives you unexpected event, take it in stride, that sounds a bit yawny or boring. Instead, say, when life throws a curveball at you, take it in stride. This sounds more interesting and engaging. And this is how Maddie intended to use it in the conversation, saying, the director did a fantastic job at building emotions to their peak and then threw in the curveball right at the perfect moment. She used this phrase to get David excited about the movie and keep his attention, indicating that the director embedded amazing plot twists that are hard to deal with and yet keep the storyline interesting. Now, if everything makes sense to you, let's come up with some examples. And the first one is, she threw me a curveball when she told me she wanted to switch majors after completing her degree. Something as important and difficult to decide as switching majors, careers, or even places to live can throw people off or surprise them because they don't expect to hear that every day. That's why when someone said she wanted to switch majors, it was like she was throwing a curveball at me because it was out of the blue.
Going on to the second example, that client is well known for throwing in curveballs at the last minute, so just be wary. If you're in the industry of having to deal with clients all the time, you will find it super challenging to deal with the ones that like changing their minds at the last minute. Maybe they previously told you they were going to buy your product, but then they threw in curveballs at the last minute, meaning they no longer wanted to buy it. So you need to be wary of that so you can change the way you speak to them and not keep your hopes too high.
Number 9. To spoil something. What is it about?
If you haven't seen this before, then I don't want to spoil anything, but you have to watch this movie.
Just as easy as it sounds, this phrase has only one pronunciation point, and that point is upon the word spoil. So the word spoil has only one syllable, but you have to make sure that you enunciate very clearly the ol sound at the end of this word. So spoil and then ol. Spoil, ol. Spoil, spoil. Now say this phrase a few more times with me. To spoil something. To spoil something. To spoil something.
If you look at the word spoil itself, it has several meanings, but we won't get into all of them, otherwise we would be here forever. Instead, we're just going to use the word to mean to ruin something or make something unpleasant or bad. Now knowing that, when someone spoils something for you, that means that they took away your interest, excitement, or pleasure in doing something. Typically, when talking about movies, people will say, "Don't spoil the ending for me," because they don't want you to ruin their interest in the movie by knowing what will happen at the end. This is exactly how Maddie used it in the conversation. She didn't want to spoil anything for David, so she gave him minimal details about the movie so that he will still be interested in watching it. Now with the simplicity of this word, let's give you some extra examples so you understand it better. The first example, his foul temper just spoiled the party for everyone. In this example, a person with a foul temper can totally destroy a party where everyone shows up to have fun. He will probably have inappropriate manners, walking around and hurling swear words at people, so people will no longer find the party fun or exciting.
And if I was there, I would feel the same way. Now let's move up to the second example. My friend tries to get my goat by attempting to spoil the ending of the books I'm reading. If a friend tries to get your goat, it just means that they try to annoy you. In this example, my friend is trying to do the same thing here. He knows I'm reading a book that he already read and tries to ruin it by revealing the ending of the book to me. He just wants me to get mad or upset because if I know the ending, the book will no longer be interesting for me to read.
Number 10, psychological drama.
It's a psychological drama, and the actors won so many awards because of this movie.
For the pronunciation, we're going to look at the word psychological. This is a long word and can be difficult for some people to say. For the first part of the pronunciation, even though this word spells with a P sound, you don't say psychological. No. So skip the P and just say psy. And the next part is psychological. Psyche. And the last part of this word is pretty simple to pronounce. Logical. The only thing to take note is the k sound in the middle. Don't over enunciate it and say psychological. Make it a subtle k sound. Psychological. Go. Now say this whole thing with me a few more times. Psychological drama. Psychological drama. Psychological drama.
Psychological drama is just a subcategory or subgenre of all the encompassing term drama. Psychological dramas mainly focus on the main character's life and mental problems. These types of dramas really make you think as they deal deeply with the human mind and emotions. You follow the main character's story as they battle with their emotions and struggles, whether it is inwardly or outwardly. For example, a widower who is a first-time father trying to raise the baby on his own. You will watch the story unfold as he's trying to manage his grief and learn how to be the best father he can. This would make you feel very empathetic towards him and think a bit deeper about what or how all the fathers are feeling. And that's it for the usages. Let's now give you some examples so you can practice with. And the first one is, my favorite type of psychological drama movie is the one that overlaps with crimes. As I explained earlier, psychological dramas keep you engaged in the way the main characters cope with their situation. These movies or shows can be much better and more mind-captivating to me when they're involved with crimes because there will be more sharp twists that can be very unpredictable. And everyone loves watching something that they can predict, right?
That's correct. I love movies where you don't exactly know what's gonna happen next and they keep you guessing. Going on to the second example, many people find psychological dramas very relatable to everyday life. Hence, they favor it over all other genres. A lot of the time, people find out the solutions to their real-life problems through watching a psychological drama, movie, or show. These movies and shows, depending on the quality, can be very practical and hold a lot of truth to our daily life. This is the reason when watching them, people find themselves not only relating to the theme, but also being educated on how to tackle their circumstances.
Number 11. chemistry between people.
Even if the storyline is pretty predictable, the chemistry between the cast members makes it so much more enjoyable.
The only word that we only care about pronunciation here is the word chemistry. Chemistry. Even though its spelling contains CH, right? But then you don't say chemistry. It has to be the K sound right there. Chemistry. Don't say chemistry. Okay? So chemistry. Now say this phrase with me a few more times. Chemistry between people. Chemistry between people.
Okay, rather than breaking this phrase down too much, I'm going to simplify it. If there is chemistry between people, then to put it simply, there is a special bond between them. Whether it be physical attraction or a special friendship. This type of relationship between these people can be considered special compared to typical relationships because they are together, there is a mutual trust, so their communication seems effortless. This is the type of bond Maddie was talking about when she said there was great chemistry between the cast members. They seemed so close that it almost wasn't like they were acting anymore. They were true friends and their relationship was portrayed so well on the screen, which makes the whole movie more appealing. Now that you understand this phrase fully, let's give you some examples. The first one, in the beginning, there didn't seem to be any chemistry between them, but somehow he won her over and they've been married for 50 years. This can be another happy ending of a movie in which two characters didn't seem to like each other at first, but things started to change and he finally managed to make her fall in love with him. And this is how the chemistry between them was built up. As a result, they've been married for 50 years.
Wow, what a wonderful ending for a movie. Now let's come up with the next one. If you want to have a great business partner, then there has to be some chemistry between you two. When it comes to a partnership in doing business, you need someone whom you can trust and rely on. And to get to that point, there's always a process to build the chemistry or bond between you and them. This is to assure the success of the business.
Number 12, theme.
I'm gonna guess you won't tell me about the storyline or the theme of this movie.
Something to be careful of when saying this word is don't change the voiceless TH sound to the voiced TH sound. So rather than saying theme, you'd say theme. That's not correct. Theme. Also, be careful and don't change this word to them. Even though the spelling is pretty similar, when you see that E at the end of this word, then know to read it as theme. Don't say them. All right? Theme.
The word theme can be used in many different situations to talk about a work of art or a piece of writing, a sentence, or even a movie. Here, we're especially talking about what it means in movies. Don't confuse theme with storyline or plot, because these are different things. When thinking of the theme, it is the reason the character is doing something, their intentions as well as their values, thinking about the message that the author is trying to convey in the actions that the characters take. For instance, the theme in a children's book can be about treasuring friendships, where the characters cooperate, listen intently to one another, or even help each other throughout the story. When reading the book, the kids will understand that its theme is about friendship, even though the author didn't directly say so. And this is what makes a good book, right? Now, if everything makes sense to you for its usages, let's move up to some of the examples so it can deepen your understanding. And the first one is, I love reading books that have courage and self-discovery as their central theme. Books with a theme portraying courage and self-discovery can be very attractive to me. And once again, I need to read them to draw that conclusion because the author didn't say directly about that. And this keeps me interested in reading this kind of book.
Going on to the second example, I hate wasting time watching a movie that is not tied to any specific theme. Movies can sometimes be all over the place with their themes. Some movies start off with admirable friendships and then end up in a chaotic killing spree, which literally confuses moviegoers or loses their interest. So after watching a movie like that, I feel like I just wasted my time.
Number 13. Someone's lips are sealed.
Nope, I won't say anything. My lips are sealed.
For the pronunciation, you don't have to be worried too much about the word someone's. If there is anything, then that thing would be the z sound at the end of this word because it has that possessive form. So you say someone's, don't skip that z sound at the end of it. And the main words that we're going to concentrate on are lips and sealed. So lips, the pronunciation point on this word is about the vowel sound in it. So lips, don't say leaps because leaps is a totally different word. And then the next one, also the last one, is sealed. Sealed. This word has the long E sound as opposed to the short E sound in the word lips. So you say seal, seal. And the old sound at the end is a voice consonant. That's what the ED part is also supposed to be a D sound or a voice consonant as well. So you say sealed, sealed, sealed. Please don't say stilled or don't say seed. Alright? So let's say this whole phrase with me a few more times. Someone's lips are sealed. Someone's lips are sealed. Someone's lips are sealed.
First, understand that this is an informal phrase. Don't be saying it to your boss or higher ups or write it in emails. But you can use this phrase with people who are closer to you in a non-formal setting. Now, what this means is that someone will absolutely not tell somebody else any information about something. There are two typical situations that this phrase can be used. The first one, if someone tells you a secret and you say, "My lips are sealed," that means that you are telling them that their secret is safe with you and you will not tell anybody else no matter what. And the second way is if someone is trying to get you to tell them something and then you say this phrase to indicate to them that there is no way you will tell them the info that they want. And this is exactly the way Maddie used it when she told David that her lips were sealed and she won't be telling him anything more about the movie. She didn't want to spoil anything for him and she won't tell him any information no matter how much he asks. Now that this phrase makes sense, let's go down to the examples. The first one, I've asked her so many times about the surprise she has planned, but it seems her lips are sealed. That means she doesn't say anything about the surprise party she planned on holding for me, no matter how many times I ask.
And the second example, when asking the teacher about what would be on the finals, he said his lips were sealed and that we better study hard. In college, I attended some of the classes that we had really nice teachers who always expected us to do our best in the finals. To that expectation, they spent the last class before the test to narrow down what would be most likely on the test, so we know what to focus on for it. However, most teachers, especially rigorous ones, wouldn't do the same thing as their lips were sealed or are sealed. Well, if this is the case for you, then you need to avoid the feelings of resentment and try to pass it by learning or studying harder.
Number 14, to star in something.
Could you at least tell me who stars in this film?
The only thing that we're going to concentrate on for this phrase is the connecting between star and in. Since star ends with the sound and in begins with the I sound, you can actually connect them and say starin, starin. Now be careful and don't say starring, because then you're saying something different. So say starin, starin. Now say this whole thing with me a few more times. To star in something, to star in something, to star in something.
When star is used in its verb form, then it means that someone is playing a main or leading role in a film, TV show, play, or a movie. So when David asked the question, who stars in the film? He doesn't want to know the name of every single person in it, just the main roles or the most important ones. That is why Maddie gave him a short list of names in response. And as easy as it sounds, now we are going to move on to some examples for this phrase. And the first one is, I like all of the action movies that Robin Williams stars in. This means that I like all of the action movies in which Robin Williams is the leading role or one of the most important casts.
Going down to the second example, the show The Queen's Gambit is a binge-worthy show that stars Beth Harmon. This show, The Queen's Gambit, is one of the shows that many people find themselves binge-watching from the beginning till the end. And one of the reasons for this is that Beth Harmon in the leading role has done an absolutely amazing job. She stars in the show being a chess prodigy and has a very unique personality. This helps capture the audience's attention watching how she deals with her problem, regardless of her being a genius in playing chess.
And the last one, number 15, streaming sites. Okay, I know some of those people, but is the movie available to watch on any of the streaming sites? For the pronunciation for this phrase, the first thing you have to be aware of is upon the word streaming. So streaming, for its first syllable, there's the long E sound, so you say streaming, you don't say streaming, okay? And the second word of it is site. Site. It has the T sound right there, and if it is in plural form, and then you have the S sound as its ending sound. So you say sites, sites. So the T sound here is supposed to be stopped. So you say sites, sites. Now say this whole phrase with me a few more times. Streaming sites, streaming sites, streaming sites.
A streaming site just refers to a website where you can either watch live or recorded content via the internet. The site offers legal access to the content to watch because they're contracted with filmmakers or movie production companies to do so. But sites that have pirated content wouldn't be called good streaming sites because of their breach or violation of copyright. Some of the most popular paid streaming sites are Netflix, Apple TV, Hulu, Disney Plus, and so on. A free streaming site that we all know by now is YouTube. Now that we have an understanding of what streaming sites are, let's get down to the examples. The first one, a great streaming site to learn English is YouTube, as there is a vast array of content. Learning another language is never as easy as how it is today. The abundance of learning content or material on YouTube is accessible to everyone. This video is supportive to this example because you're watching it to learn English, and YouTube plays as a great streaming site to help you achieve your learning goal.
That's pretty true, because I use YouTube to improve my English skills every single day. Now let's come up with the second example. The streaming site Disney Plus is well worth the money because you have access to all of the Disney movies. In case you never use Disney Plus, it's absolutely worth it because Disney movies are adored by many viewers and fans, but they're rarely available elsewhere except for the streaming site. Hence, although it costs money, It's all worth it because you can watch all of the stunning Disney movies.
Now those are all of the phrases for Conversation 23. Be sure to go back over this video and create your own examples with all of these phrases so that you have a deeper understanding of them and they're all embedded in your head so you can use them in daily conversation.
And please help support us if you like this video by clicking on the thumbs up button and also subscribe to our channel so you can continue learning more and more every single day. Now that's it for today's video and we hope to see you all in the next one. Bye.
Bye.